Hi guys, welcome to the latest of my video lessons, this time focusing on the character of Dr. Jekyll in Jekyll and Hyde. Before I get into Dr. Jekyll himself, just a reminder, if you don't already know, so head on over to mrhonline.co.uk for a whole load of other video lessons on a wide range of topics. Okay, so before I push on to the next screen, a couple of things to bear in mind when analysing Dr. Jekyll, any character theme in Jekyll and Hyde, but Dr. Jekyll in particular. First up, the book was published in 1886. Just like 27 years prior to that, Darwin's Theory of Evolution was published. It's important because it introduced a whole different way of thinking about how we evolved. Scientific approach as opposed to a religious belief in God approach. Also, in the 1880s, psychology emerged as a science, and that's important, obviously, because Stevenson was fascinated by issues of the mind and exploring how the mind works, manifest through the character of Dr. Jekyll. These two things combined to create a degree of conflict in Victorian society. On the one hand, science; on the other hand, religion, and that conflict, emerges through the theme of duality, and in particular the character of Jekyll and his alter ego, Mr. Hyde. Okay, so that's a little background, and let's get into Dr. Jekyll himself. Okay, who is he? So he's a central character or protagonist. Now, the interesting thing about being a central character, he's often quite a shadowy figure, absent. Utterson is our kind of main character in terms of holding our hand, the reader's hand, through the journey, the investigation, his attempts to discover who Hyde is and what hold Hyde has over Jekyll. And the narrator is what we call a third-person limited narrative, which means that the narrator is only aware of the thoughts and feelings of one character in particular, and that's Utterson. So, Dr. Jekyll is often a mystery to us, the reader. He's a medical doctor. He's respected, he's wealthy, he's moral and decent, well, if analysing him as a separate entity to Hyde. He has an interest in the supernatural, obviously. He makes potions to try and unleash or release his inner impulses. He's unhappy being unable to act more on impulse. Okay, so Victorian society, it's important to acknowledge, reputation was important. You could be destroyed if your reputation was tarnished in some way. So you had to suppress your more entertaining or impulsive desires and behave in a particular way. You're expected to behave in a particular way by society at large. Now, he does acknowledge or reveal that he indulges in some secret pleasures. He doesn't specify what these are, but we can pontificate, we can make some informed judgments as to what they are. He creates Hyde to allow his inner self to express itself, gradually loses the ability to control when Hyde appears, and becomes withdrawn and desperate as a result, as he scrabbles around trying to recreate this potion. Ultimately, he ends his own life. Spoiler alert. Okay, what have I written there? More progressive and willing to embrace developments in medicine and psychology, reflecting the developments in the wider society at that time. Okay, so straight into some quotations, because they're crucial, obviously. You'll need to be calling on quotations from throughout the novella. So here are some I've picked out for you already. So, do pause the video, make a note, jot them down on a post-it note, stick them up on the wall or wherever. Familiarise yourself with them. Celebrated too, one of your fellows who do what they call good. So we haven't met Jekyll, but we've heard about him from Enfield. Talking about his good character. One of your fellows who do what they call good. Okay, now, as we describe Jekyll, you need to be mindful of how he contrasts or compares to the descriptions of Hyde. So Hyde is 100% pure evil, but Dr. Jekyll is one of those people who does good. Okay, too fanciful, wrong in the mind. Chapter 2. Lanyon, Dr. Lanyon. Now, he represents the old school, the more traditional scientific approach, as opposed to the more progressive approach of Dr. Jekyll. And so they haven't spoken for 10 years. One of them calls the other a pedant, and the other one calls his beliefs balderdash. So Lanyon about Jekyll reveals Jekyll as more progressive, less conservative and traditional, more willing to embrace developments in science and psychology, but also sets out early that there's more to Jekyll than initially meets the eye. And we've got a big question mark over the character of Jekyll. A large, well-made, smooth-faced man of 50, every mark of capacity and kindness. So this is the outward description of how Jekyll looks, which is in stark contrast to the description of Hyde, as you can check out in the video on Hyde. But this links to duality of man. Stevenson, and through his character Jekyll, believed there were two aspects of human nature. So we all had good, we all had the capacity for good and the capacity for bad. And it harks back to Darwin's theory of evolution and how we evolved through the troglodytic caveman era and become more civilized over the centuries. And now we have a moral code. So we know we can't just go around killing people. There are consequences, and we have an acute sense of right and wrong. He grew pale to the very lips, and there came a blackness about his eyes. You'll find a lot of Gothic imagery used to describe Jekyll in relation to Hyde as well as the setting. So this is from chapter 3, Jekyll's reaction to the mere mention of Hyde's name. Gothic imagery prevalent here alerts the reader to the relationship between Jekyll and Hyde, deepens the mystery surrounding the two. Remember, Utterson's trying to find out what on earth is going on with this fella Hyde. Utterson and Jekyll are old friends, close friends. Utterson's a lawyer. Jekyll has asked Utterson to do his will, and in the will, Hyde is mentioned, and Utterson's never heard of Hyde before. He's never met him nor seen him. Not only is he just mentioned in Jekyll's will, he actually is listed as the main beneficiary. So if Jekyll were to die, or curiously to go missing, disappear for 3 months, all of Jekyll's wealth is to pass to Hyde. Utterson questions Jekyll, but Jekyll didn't offer up any suggestions as to who he was. And Utterson respected this as the consummate professional that he is. So, but he hasn't forgotten him. So when Enfield tells Utterson about the incident of the door, when Hyde was described as trampling calmly over a little girl, this raised a big red flag in Utterson's mind, and he determined at that point that he was going to investigate and find out what exactly lay behind this Hyde. He believed he had some hold over Jekyll, that he was blackmailing him in some way, and he wanted to protect his friend from scandal, and also to see if he can help out. And there may have been a degree of curiosity as well in Utterson. So he approaches Jekyll, and he observes that when he mentions Hyde, this is Jekyll's response. So it's not exactly a positive sense that we get about their relationship. It's certainly something that's troubling Jekyll. Pale and blackness, very linked to Gothic imagery, which was very popular at the time. Continuing with the quotations, Utterson has visited his old friend and observes his appearance with grave concern. Jekyll is like this, as he is aware that the previous night Hyde had killed Sir Danvers' crew in cold blood, bludgeoned him with ape-like fury, if you can remember. And Jekyll is not 100% evil. Hyde is. So the good part of Jekyll is what lies behind the fact that he's now looking deathly sick. As we develop into the novella, we realise that Jekyll, we retrospectively in chapter 10, we realise that Jekyll had begun to lose control about when and how he turned and where he turned into Hyde from Jekyll, where this transformation took place. So he's at the window, and he's talking down to Utterson and Enfield, and he's suddenly aware that he's about to change into Hyde without warning, and Utterson observes that his expression turns instantly from friendly chat to such abject terror and despair. So it kind of hints at the horror of what Jekyll is suffering through, but we have no idea why or what's going on at this point. Then Lanyon's account of Jekyll having just transformed from Hyde includes more Gothic imagery, pale and shaken, like a man restored from death, which is irony there. Okay, now links to theme and context. We can connect Jekyll to the theme of duality, as for a long time he's been aware of the two aspects of his character, two natures that contended in the field of consciousness, and profound duplicity of life. I do like the word duplicity. The two aspects of Jekyll's character, reflected in setting as well. In Jekyll's house, the facade at the front is respectable, whereas there's the dingy back where the cabinet is, where he does his experimentation, which is exited and entered through that door from the opening chapter. The polar twins of good and evil, also obviously links to the theme of good and evil, continuously struggling, sums up how he perceives his internal battle. This represents the conflict between how Jekyll wants to behave and how he feels Victorian society expects him to behave to maintain his high standing. And he's fed up. He's fed up behaving in a way, or not being able to behave in a way, or act in a way, or act on his impulses or his desires as he would like. This dual nature leads him to separate the two parts into two separate beings. Okay, further links. You can also link Jekyll to the theme of good and evil. He describes Hyde as alone in the ranks of mankind, pure evil. Remember, Hyde is Jekyll's alter ego. He's in a bad. So when he's released, he's all bad. He's 100% pure evil. But Hyde represents Jekyll's alter ego, the inner being that wishes to act more on impulse. Does this mean that the respectable and respected Jekyll cannot be considered as exclusively good? Science can also be connected to Jekyll, especially when you explore his relationship with Dr. Lanyon. Narrow and material views versus unscientific balderdash. So you must reference Darwin's theory of evolution, which was only like 27 years before this book was published, which stated humans evolved from animals not created by God. Stevenson focuses on this uncertainty about our true nature. And that uncertainty in this character of Jekyll and who and what Hyde is lies behind a large portion of the intrigue that the reader has, and Utterson. Okay, other themes include appearance and reality, psychology, and the Gothic, the supernatural, and some descriptions of Jekyll. Okay, in the final screen, exam relevance. Well, it's quite clear. Any character question on Dr. Jekyll, it's all yours. Any character question on Hyde, you have to link Dr. Jekyll because they're one and the same person. But also, any questions on how Stevenson builds up tension, creates mystery, how he links to any other character, maybe themes of duality, loyalty, friendship, Victorian England, London society, reputation, status, etc. Okay, so there's enough there to keep you going. Do rewatch, pause the video, take notes, and move on to the next one. All right, cheers guys, bye.